سلمت للمجد، وعلى جبينك طالع السعد. وطن الكويت سلمت للمجد، وعلى جبينك طالع السعد. وطن الكويت، وطن الكويت، وطن الكويت سلمت للمجد. يا مهد آباء الأولى كتبوا سفر الخلود فنادت الشهب الله أكبر إنهم عرب. طلعت كواكب جنة الخلد. وطن الكويت سلمت للمجد، وعلى جبينك طالع السعد. وطن الكويت، وطن الكويت، وطن الكويت سلمت للمجد. بوركت يا وطن الكويت لنا سكنا، وعشت على المدى وطنا. يهديك حر في حماك بنى صرح الحياة بأكرم الأيدي. وطن الكويت سلمت للمجد، وعلى جبينك طالع السعد. وطن الكويت، وطن الكويت، وطن الكويت سلمت للمجد. نحميك يا وطني وشاهدنا، شرع الهدى والحق رائدنا، وأميرنا بالعز قائدنا. رب الحمية صادق الوعد. وطن الكويت سلمت للمجد، وعلى جبينك طالع السعد. وطن الكويت، وطن الكويت، وطن الكويت سلمت للمجد. Prema vada sama veda
Thank you very much. Please be seated. Lightness and brightness has always been equated with positively and motivation, as seen as a harbinger of a good. To start off with, on a suspicious note, we will now have the lighting of oil lamp. Ladies and gentlemen, to do the honor, we have a esteemed gathering here among us. May I call upon following dignitaries to kindly join us to lighting of oil lamp. Chief guest, Mr. Dharma Dheerasinghe, the Chairman of Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC. His Excellency, Mr. Mohammed Jafar, the Ambassador of Sri Lanka in Kuwait. Ms. Kalum Amarasinghe, the Head of Foreign Operations and Travels of Commercial Bank of Sri Lanka. Mr. Pradeep Bandhuwansa, the Head of Digital Banking and Remittance Operations, Commercial Bank of Sri Lanka. Mr. Sanjeeva Senaratne, the President of CA Sri Lanka Kuwait Chapter, representing all Sri Lankan communities. Engineer Noura Al-Fazam, representing the other distinguished guests. You cannot swim for new horizons until you have a courage to lose sight of a shore, said by William Faulkner, who is a writer and the Nobel Prize winner. Similarly, you cannot expect succeed if we are unable to get outside our comfort zone. We hope that new horizons will bring the prospect to our motherland, Sri Lanka. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to see you all in this program, which is first kind of, it's in Kuwait. I am Mangala Rajapaksha, the Vice President of CA Sri Lanka Kuwait Chapter. And today, I'll be the Master of Ceremony. Before we moving on, I would like to share a few information and prerequisites which will help all of us during this program. As you can see, it would be great if you can put your phone silent or at least make sure that the disturbance is minimized to the audience as well as the speakers. And of course, be aware of your calls being recorded. The exit doors are on your right side in case of an emergency, and the washroom are outside down the corridor to the corner. And of course, you will find an agenda of today's event on your table. If you are very curious about what's going to happen next, of course, you can refer to that. Last but not least, it's most important for us that the assessment form is being printed and kept on your table for each and every one of you. At the end of the event, please make sure that you give your feedback on today's event so that it will be great help for the organizing committee to take forward for the future events. CA Sri Lanka Kuwait Chapter, one of the prestigious Sri Lankan professional association in Kuwait. Let's take a look at our story.
All men dream, but not equally. Those who dream by night, in the dusty recesses of their minds, wake in the day to find that it was vanity. But the dreamers of the day are dangerous men, for they may act their dream with open eyes to make it possible.
The CA Sri Lanka Kuwait chapter, the torchbearer of the accounting and auditing profession. With this, I would like to invite the president of CA Sri Lanka Kuwait chapter, Mr. Sanjeeva, to deliver the welcome speech.
Thank you, Mangala. Good evening, Ayubowan, Assalamu alaikum, and Vanakkam. It is my great pleasure to see you all in this evening. The theme of the evening is New Horizon, Sri Lanka the Opportunity Again. The reason why we select this topic is that we believe Sri Lanka has full potential and capability to emerge as role model country. This is our belief as well as this is our aspiration. We know that Sri Lanka is going through a learning curve to become a role model country. We have heard from many professionals from Colombo, but we thought that we have missed the opportunity to hear from a career economist who is best suited to talk about this subject. So we chose the chairman of Commercial Bank, Mr. Dharma Dheerasinghe, to talk about this subject. We believe that he is the best suited individual with high caliber CV to make such a presentation. At the same time, being an expatriate worker and a citizen who are living outside of Sri Lanka, we all have a lot of hopes and aspiration about ourselves as well as our motherland. Even though we are here, physically, our heart and soul is still in Sri Lanka or our motherland. Our innocent hope is that whatever the opportunities we have missed will return back to our younger generation and our kids. At the end of the day, all of us want to go back to Sri Lanka and settle there. In that context, we all are very keen on knowing what are the opportunities do we have and what are the ways in which we can contribute towards the development of our nation. Therefore, today our effort is to create that atmosphere. We as a CA Sri Lanka Kuwait chapter, the official chapter of the National Accounting Body of Sri Lanka, thought that we have a duty and responsibility to consolidate the Sri Lankans in Kuwait to make them inspired, make them knowledgeable about how we can contribute towards the development of this country. So we have invited the Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC to join hand with us to present this program to you. Our invitation was well received by the Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC. In April 2019, we were planning to have the similar kind of events, but circumstances led us to postpone the event. Now we believe this is the right time, right opportunity, and the right environment to inspire everybody to contribute toward the development of our nation. Let me take this opportunity to convey my sincere gratitude to the Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC, which is the largest commercial bank of Sri Lanka, to join hand with us to present this program. My gratitude goes to the Board of Directors of Commercial Bank and Chairman Mr. Dharmadhira Singha, Mr. Pradeep Bandhuansa, Head of Digital Operation and Remittance, and all the Commercial Bank staff who has joined us to present this program to you. So, ladies and gentlemen, may I take this opportunity to welcome the following. Our chief guest today is Chairman of Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC, Mr. Dharmadhira Singha. Mr. Dhira Singha, we are pleasure and we are privileged to have you here. And let me invite His Excellency the Ambassador of Sri Lanka in Kuwait, all the embassy staff and all distinguished guests who are here to welcome Mr. Dharmadhira Singha to this program, and also Mr. Pradeep Bandhuansa, Head of Digital Banking and Remittance Operation, and Madam Kalum Amarasinghe, Head of Foreign Operation to the program. And also, our guest of honor today is His Excellency the Ambassador of Sri Lanka in Kuwait, Mr. Mohammed Jawhar. His Excellency, it is our pleasure to have you here. I warmly welcome you on behalf of CA Sri Lanka Kuwait chapter. And distinguished guest, it is our pleasure to have you here. I warmly welcome all of you on behalf of CA Sri Lanka Kuwait chapter. Finally, our chapter members and students, we are pleasure to have you here. I warmly welcome all of you on behalf of CA Sri Lanka Kuwait chapter executive committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sanjeeva. Now, I would like to call upon our guest of honor today, His Excellency, the Ambassador of Sri Lanka in Kuwait, Mr. Mohammed Jawhar, to address the audience. Please welcome His Excellency,
Mr. Sanjeeva Senaratne, Mr. Dharmadhira Singha, Chairman, Commercial Bank, Ms. Kalum Amarasinghe, Mr. Pradeep Bandhuansa, Mr. Praveen of Al Mulla, and friends. Aibowan, Vanakkam, Assalamu alaikum, and good evening. It's a pleasure and privilege for me to address this gathering. Why it is important to me that we Sri Lankans here work very hard to build our country's image. For us to build our country's image, we need support from many groups of Sri Lankans who are here. What we have achieved so far is commendable as a team along with other Sri Lankans, but we have a long way to go. For us to go further, to build our image, our country's image in this country, is very important that professionals in big numbers should come to countries like Kuwait. I'm talking in the region. It's very important that we have more and more professionals coming to Kuwait and other countries and to show what real Sri Lanka is. I think our foreign exchange, a big chunk comes from our expatriate workers. Many of them are not necessarily professionals and skilled workers. But for us to bring this up, we have to have opportunities. Now we heard challenges, leadership, performance, and so on. So how do we do that? For us to do that, we need to work very hard, as I said earlier. And the body is like CA Sri Lanka. I noticed that it was established through a parliamentary act in 1959. And it has a member of over 6,000, I'm told. And it runs an institute which has 44,000 students. And CA Sri Lanka has many overseas chapters. They have chapters in the region, like countries Bahrain, Qatar, and UAE, and Kuwait. And I'm told that in Saudi Arabia there's one chapter. And 2 chapters are to be opened in Melbourne and Sydney. And so this shows how active CA Sri Lanka and its members. And CA Sri Lanka guides their members, give them the platform, and shows them the pathway for them to prosper along with Sri Lanka. So when we prosper, what we do is we contribute to our country's economic development. So that I think along with other professionals in many parts of the world, CA Sri Lanka is doing a remarkable job. So the CA Sri Lanka Kuwaiti chapter, though established in 2015, my predecessor told me that they are working very hard and they are showing the pathway to other professionals. I'm glad to see that many doctors have come to Kuwait, and I need to recognize some of them, I should say all of them, come to the embassy. They treat Sri Lankan workers who are accommodated there free of charge. So likewise, we need to have more and more professionals to come to Kuwait and to build our country's image, and also to get more and more foreign exchange for our country to develop. So to do that, we all receive, like me, free education in Sri Lanka. So we have an obligation to support Sri Lanka. And we have to, I noticed many of you work in big companies. Some are doing so well in the field of investment. So we need to convince your companies, your friends, to invest in Sri Lanka. And we at the embassy, at any given opportunity, we try to convince here in Kuwait, Kuwaitis. A couple of days ago also, I had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Marafi, the owner of the Radisson Blu Hotel. So likewise, a few days ago, we also met with the NBTC Group Chairman, Mr. K.G. Abraham. In our small way, we are working very hard to bring investment in Sri Lanka, to have bilateral trade to increase in both ways. And we are in the process of signing an MOU between the Kuwaiti Chamber of Commerce Industry and Sri Lanka's National Chamber of Commerce. So we work very hard to achieve these objectives. So we earnestly ask all of you to support us the way you do, and to convince your friends, your companies, and not only on investing, even their visits to Sri Lanka as tourists, it goes a long way. Recently, we were able to facilitate a visit of His Highness Sheikh Nasser, the son of His Highness the Amir. He was in Sri Lanka for a week, and we were able to facilitate his private visit. So these are the examples. Dignitaries and company chairmen and other professionals. And when we just left the embassy, I was informed that a few Egyptian doctors were going to Sri Lanka to spend their time. When I had a chat with Mr. Marafi, the owner of the Radisson Blu, he had said he even remembers the names of the places he visited, like Bentota and Gaul, Kandy, Nuwara. So he said Sri Lanka stands out among the countries he had visited. So we have lots of potentials, we have a lot of opportunities. I have told them that Sri Lanka has free trade agreements with countries like India, Pakistan, and so on. So those who invest in Sri Lanka get to export to big markets like India with less duty. So therefore, it's a bounden duty for all of us to show that coming to Sri Lanka and investing in Sri Lanka it has its worth. So coming back to again the role of the Kuwait Chamber CA chapter in Kuwait, and I wanted to recognize their hard work and their support to the embassy, and I wish next month they are going to have the AGM. So I would like to thank them for their support, and please be assured that the embassy would do whatever it could do support your events and your efforts. And also I need to thank Mr. Dharma Dheerasinghe to come all the way from Sri Lanka to be the chief guest of this important gathering, and that shows how Commercial Bank views the work of the Kuwaiti chapter of the CA Sri Lanka. And thank you for everybody for listening to me, and thank you for taking part in this event, and please convey this message to everybody. Thank you.
Since we are slightly behind the schedule, without further waiting, let me introduce our chief guest today, Mr. Dharma Dheerasinghe, Chairman, Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC, Sri Lanka, and former Deputy Governor of Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Without me reading his profile, let's see on the big screen about Mr. Dharma Dheerasinghe.
Mr. Dharma Dheerasinghe is the current chairman of the Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC. He was the deputy chairman of the Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC from 2011 till 2014. Mr. Dheerasinghe functioned as the alternative executive director for Bangladesh, Bhutan, India and Sri Lanka of the International Monetary Fund from 2007 till 2010 and deputy governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka from 2004 till 2007. Mr. Dheerasinghe was also the chairman of the Monetary Policy Committee and Sovereign Ratings Committee. He has obtained a master's degree for economics from the University of Leeds and a first-class honorary bachelor's degree and B.Phil for economics from the University of Colombo. He is an honorary fellow of the Institute of Bankers of Sri Lanka and holder of honorary ACI diploma. He has won the International President's Appreciation Award for Humanitarian Service awarded by the Lions Club International. He has also presented more than 50 papers at international seminars. Mr. Dheerasinghe currently serves in the Board of Management of National Science Foundation. He is also a visiting lecturer, moderator and examiner in the University of Colombo, Kelaniya, Sri Jayawardhanapura, Moratuwa and several professional bodies in Sri Lanka. He is an eminent economist with a distinguished career for 40 years in the banking industry.
The profile of Mr. Dharma Dheerasinghe is followed by the theme video, New Horizon. Put your hands together to Mr. Dharma Dheerasinghe.
Ayuban, Vanakkam, Assalamu alaikum, good evening. His Excellency, the Sri Lankan Ambassador in Kuwait, Mr. Mohammed Jaufar, President of CA Sri Lanka, Kuwait chapter, Mr. Sanjeeva Senaratna, and members of the CA Sri Lanka Kuwait chapter, my colleagues from Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. And we in Commercial Bank of Ceylon has been having our presence in the Middle East for the last 16 or 17 years. And Mr. Pradeep Bandhuvansa, who is here, has pioneered all our relationships that we have in remittance and exchange business between Sri Lanka and the Middle East. My affiliation with CS Sri Lanka traces back to 1987. I served as an examiner, paper setter, cum moderator of CS Sri Lanka examinations for 6 years, which means 2 terms. And I have set the economics papers of CS Sri Lanka examinations for 6 years. I have moderated and being also an examiner of CS Sri Lanka examinations. And as far as this event today goes, I must acknowledge the contribution and effort made by Mr. Asoka Rupasinghe, your member. And unfortunately for us, the event that was organized last year in April was not materialized. And we are here today mainly due to his efforts. Few times he came to my office in Colombo and had detailed discussions with me and the organization of this event and solicited our support. And we at that time felt that it is nothing but our duty, though we are a private bank, to help and solicit the support of friendly nations despite our business relationships, that to help develop our motherland. And I must thank His Excellency Mohammed Jaufar for his very encouraging comments that he made this evening, and also the efforts he has been taking ever since he has been here, maybe for a very short period now, 3 or 4 months. And we hope, Your Excellency, that your efforts one day will succeed, and we have more investments despite the remittances we get from Kuwait, some more strong partnerships in developing the Sri Lankan economy. And it was also said in passing that, in my view as well, the biggest challenge we have in our Sri Lankan economy is our disequilibrium in our external sector. If I may put it in a different perspective, it is the continuous deficit we have been running in our current account or the balance of payment. And as a result, our currency has been depreciating continuously. If I tell you the rate of depreciation, and in 1977, with the budget that was presented by the then government, made our exchange rate a floating exchange rate, which is a fixed exchange rate up until that point. The dollar, rather US dollar, was fixed at 15 Sri Lankan rupees. And today the Sri Lankan rupee has depreciated so much that we pay over 180 rupees per US dollar. So I don't have to put you in mathematical terms, the rate of depreciation and other numbers. This would explain how badly the currency has been depreciating. And as a result of the depreciation, there was inflation in the country. The prudent monetary policy we had has been able to maintain or contain the rate of inflation to some extent. And for the last 10 years or so, we have been maintaining the rate of inflation at single digit level. And also the other big issue we have in our domestic economy is the high fiscal deficit, which has been sometimes over 10%. The difference between the government revenue and the government expenditure, that number also has now been contained at around 5%. So I gave these numbers to put our economy in some perspective that all of you would understand. The information I have here says that we have a diverse audience and more Sri Lankans and other invitees or non-Sri Lankans, and I must thank all of you for your presence here to listen to us and to get some idea of Sri Lankan economy. Can we have the slides? Right. Now, for most of you who are Sri Lankans, I don't need more details to be given for you to understand what the Sri Lanka or Sri Lankan economy is all about. And it's a small island in the Indian Ocean of 65,610 square kilometers and 21.4 million population. And it is a multi-ethnic and multicultural economy, people living in harmony. Right. Now, I will have some details as to the composition of the Sri Lankan economy, and the entire economy in terms of its gross domestic product is 90.8 billion US dollars, according to the latest 2018 Central Bank annual report. And it's a per capita of 4,102 US dollars in 2018, which means by international standards it's a high middle income per capita country, and we need to grow more, and the economy has to be much bigger and the per capita to be much higher than this. Right. The composition of the economy is that we have an agriculture sector which contributes to GDP, and its contribution is around 7%, and the industry contributes 26.1%. Services, all services put together, contribution is 57.7%, totaling 90.8 plus taxes less subsidies. All these activities, agriculture, industry, services, some activities are taxed and some activities get subsidies. So taxes minus subsidies is around 9.2%, and which makes a total of 100%. So these are all 2018 numbers. These numbers would have improved at least slightly in 2019. I don't have the official numbers, so I don't want to give you any estimates. But according to the Sri Lankan authorities, the Sri Lankan economy would have grown by 2.8% in 2019, which unfortunately is the second lowest rate of growth in South Asia. And the official estimate for 2020 growth to be around 4.5% to 5%. Hopefully, we will be able to achieve a higher growth rate, because this is a country which has been having much higher economic growth. Say, for example, in 2010, 2011, 2012, in 2012, we had over 9% annual growth in our GDP. So we need to go for a higher growth trajectory for country to achieve the goals that have been set. And the new president, His Excellency Gotabaya Rajapaksa, has taken some initiatives. And firstly, he started with some tax concessions given to the industry, hoping that there will be some response from the various sectors in the economy, mainly the small and medium enterprises, which constitute around 65 to 70% of our economy. And with that, the other measures he has put in place, including, of course, the monetary policy and other fiscal measures to maintain low interest rates. And that will also help the industry to borrow from banks at lower rates, because if you look at the composition of industry, some activity, any sector, agriculture, industry or manufacturing industry or services, you have very high finance cost in their cost of production. So that high cost of financing, the activity would be brought down to a much lower levels so that the price levels can be maintained at a reasonably low level so that the rate of inflation in the economy can be contained. So looking at agriculture, we have major export crops such as tea, rubber and coconut. And Sri Lanka is one of the world's major tea exporters. And the branded as Ceylon tea. And then we have other export crops like spices, vegetables, and other minor export crops. And Sri Lanka is the largest export of cinnamon in the world. So there is potential for these activities, especially in addition to the growth in any of these activities, there has to be some value addition which will contribute to higher GDP. And then looking at the fisheries industry, and Sri Lanka is an island, so there is ocean all around the country, and there is a very high potential for fisheries industry in Sri Lanka. But that potential has not been harnessed due to lack of investment. And gems and jewelry industry, Sri Lanka has the precious stones and semi-precious stones, and it's a mining industry, gem mining and cutting and polishing. With that there is value addition, and that goes together with the jewelry industry, and the potential is very high for value-added exports in gem and mining sector in our economy. And then moving on to the manufacturing industries, Sri Lanka is one of the largest textile and garment exporters. Still the potential has not been harnessed. We have a total exports, all exports put together is around 12 billion US dollars a year, and the trade deficit is high because our imports are exceeding 21 billion a year, so there is a huge trade deficit, and this deficit has to be reduced to a great extent to achieve a sustainable balance of payment in the economy. So textile and garments has a potential, and then rubber-based products. Sri Lanka is a producer of natural rubber, and the rubber-based products is an industry which is growing, but looking at its growth in the past, we have been exporting natural rubber in its raw form, but there has been very little improvement in its value addition. So it has to be a value-added, high value-added export, but industry has not harnessed its full potential. And there is energy sector, and there is fast-growing demand, and looking at the hydropower potential, I think country has fully utilized its hydro potential, and almost entirety of the household sector in Sri Lanka are now connected to the national grid, so they get the power from the national grid. So still there is potential where we are also looking at oil refinery. We have only one oil refinery, and the government has been planning for a second oil refinery in Sri Lanka. And then due to fast growing demand, we need to increase the supply of energy in different energy sources, including, of course, petroleum, hydroelectricity, and solar power, and so on and so forth. And waste management is also another sector where there is room for improvement, and which I think the government has taken some steps. And looking at infrastructure developments, ports and airports, there is investment in this sector. New ports have been built, and there is expansion in Colombo and other ports. And there is a new port that was built in Hambantota, an airport in Mattala, and expansion of the airports in Colombo and Mattala both, and to accommodate the increasing traffic. So there is room for expansion. And Port City project, you must be familiar with this. And there is a new project that has been undertaken by the government, and as a result, there is about 267 hectares of new land, which is going to be a financial center in Colombo. And this Port City is a project where we can have new investments, and there is a project, and at the moment the Port City legal framework is being developed, and the land is on offer for investors. What I heard is that they have already got some investments, each investment costing about $400 to $500 million, which I think will help the economy in the medium to long run. And there is also condominium and apartment buildings that are coming up. We have that demand from mostly foreigners as well as the Sri Lankans living in foreign countries, and that sector is also one sector that can be identified as a potential for foreign investment. And in the services sector, information communication technology, which I think is extremely important for any economy, and so a lot of multinational agencies have set up their back offices in Sri Lanka, and there is still a great potential in this industry for digital solutions, and also looking at professional services, educated workforce, and it's not the kind of literacy we are looking at, but in our country there is a fast growing IT literacy and IT penetration. So those are, I think, very important areas where we look at foreign investment. So that, I think, will also help the economy in a great deal. And then looking at the financial sector, we have a very strong and robust financial sector, well capitalized banks, but those banks are small in size compared to world standards, and therefore those banks need more capital for expansion. And I think recently we had some share transactions where some foreign investors, I think the largest ever transaction at the Colombo Stock Exchange. And there is still, the sector is growing, and we invite foreign investors to come and invest in our banking and financial services. And our banks are Basel III compliant, and almost all banks are IFRS compliant and need, as I said, more capital in those banks to make them bigger and to meet up future challenges. And then there is also potential for consolidation of banks and other financial institutions which are finance houses and leasing companies. And there is a consolidation program that the government is now contemplating. So with that, some of those smaller banks will get bigger, and more finance companies and leasing companies will be amalgamated, so that they will also be bigger organizations which will have the capacity to meet up their challenges. And growing insurance industry, which I think is at a very, very primitive stage at the moment. So that is one area which can be considered by any potential investors. And also looking at the financial literacy and access to finance, I think an area where we need to improve the financial literacy of the people, mostly in rural areas, and for them to have some access to finance to start up their self-employment or some small and medium scale industries. And tourism is one of the fastest growing industry in Sri Lanka. Unfortunately, we had an internal conflict for the last for nearly 30 years, ended up in 2009, and I can remember I was myself engaged in the economic research department of the central bank, and in 1982 Thailand and Sri Lanka had same level of tourist traffic, I think 250,000 tourists per year in 1982. Today I hear that in Thailand the tourist arrivals has increased from that level to 39 million a year, 39 plus million in 2019, where in Sri Lanka we are still struggling to reach our target that has been set for 2020, which is 2.5, or rather 4 million tourists. So, which I think is a country which has tourist attraction by way of fauna and flora, if I may say, the biodiversity, and then most dense leopard population in the world, most dense elephant population in the world. You can travel around the country in a matter of 2 hours. You can go from dry zone to the wet zone, and then from very high temperature of about 30 degrees Celsius to about 7-8 degrees Celsius, the central area. So, which I think are some of the areas we have not been able to market. And investment opportunities in hotel capacity expansion and other ancillary services, there is enormous potential for investment. And then looking at value-add destination, I mentioned some of these things, and undiscovered destination, because we had the 30-year conflict, and tourism is very sensitive for the security of the destination, and as a result, we have suffered a lot. And now that place, I believe, is some of the agencies have rated #1 place for tourists. So we believe with the incentives that have been put in place for the industry, there will be fast growth in the medium to long term in the tourist sector in Sri Lanka. Right. Then I think it's important that I also mention about the policy framework. I mentioned that at the beginning, the fiscal stimulus that have been given, hoping that there will be some revival beginning in 2020 and going into the medium to long run, and to have a higher rate of growth of the economy. And also I, in passing, mentioned the need for foreign investment. Of course, the disequilibrium in the balance of payment has been overcome in the past with debt-related inflows, and we are now looking at non-debt-related investment or other inflows into the country, which will be mainly in the form of foreign investment. And foreign investment also has to be some FDIs, that is foreign direct investment, which means the investors go and set up their industries or whatever the activities that will contribute to the higher growth, not just the investment that come to the equity market in Colombo Stock Exchange. Those are also important, but as far as sustainable growth of the economy is concerned, we should be promoting more foreign direct investment. And there is a very strong institutional framework in Sri Lanka with the Board of Investment and the Foreign Exchange Management, and further liberalization. I think, if I may say about liberalization of the Sri Lankan economy, which traces back to 1977, which is now 42 2 years ago, still we have an unfinished agenda of liberalization. Our current account has been fully liberalized. We have certain areas in our capital account to be liberalized. So with the strong growth, sustainable growth, only with a strong balance of payment, we can go for capital account liberalization, which I think will find everlasting solution for the country's current economic problems. And also one of the other measures that His Excellency the President has taken is to make the public sector more efficient. And I think that's a talk of the town these days, and we see much more efficient public sector. He has been in power for less than 3 months, but during that very short period, we have seen, and the country is experiencing, very efficient and effective public sector. And also, he's hoping that with all these measures and the measures that he will be taking very soon with the general election coming up, somewhere in March or April, with the support of the new parliament, to take measures to put the country on a higher growth trajectory. So we hope that he'll have the courage and determination which he has to put this economy in the right perspective. So with that, I conclude my presentation. And I think what is important, I think Ms. Kaluma Amarasinghe is also going to speak on foreign exchange management, which is, I think, is a very important area as far as the country's economy is concerned. So maybe we can have some question and answer and some interaction thereafter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dheerasinghe. Such a wonderful, detailed presentation about the new horizons that we would be able to capitalize to bring the prospect to our motherland, Sri Lanka. The Commercial Bank of Ceylon being the main sponsor of today's event, and without them, we wouldn't have succeeded of arranging an event of this scale. So let's take a look at the commercial video of the Commercial Bank of Ceylon, Sri Lanka, the largest bank in Sri Lanka.
Commercial Bank was born to Sri Lanka in the colonial 1920s, a time when trade, commerce and enterprises began to thrive. In 1969, it transitioned into an independent entity, beginning an unbroken and unprecedented tradition of excellence in service that has continued to this day. Today, it is the only Sri Lankan bank to be ranked among the top 1,000 banks of the world for 8 consecutive years. With a network of over 260 branches and a network of over 800 ATMs in Sri Lanka, the bank has been recognized over the years both locally and globally for its unwavering strength, stability and customer orientation. Commercial Bank's overseas operations include branches in Bangladesh, Myanmar and a fully fledged bank in the Republic of Maldives. Serving millions of Sri Lankans across all walks of life, Commercial Bank is currently the largest private bank in Sri Lanka with the highest market capitalization in the Colombo Stock Exchange. Commercial Bank is also the first private bank in the country to surpass 1 trillion rupees in assets and has the largest deposits and advances portfolio in the private sector. The bank continues to lead the local market in offering unique services in Sri Lanka, such as banking channels enabled by digital and mobile technologies, state-of-the-art automated banking services and products, and service with digital innovations. The growing number of innovative services offered to the customer by Commercial Bank has helped it maintain its image as one of the country's most progressive financial institutions. Through the years, the bank has used its heritage of trust and convenience to improve society through the Commercial Bank Social Responsibility Trust by reaching out to uplift Sri Lanka educationally, socially, culturally and ethically. The CSR Trust Fund continues to empower school children through their investment in technology and IT labs, especially in rural areas. They also focus on healthcare and environment conservation projects involving the environment. Powered by state-of-the-art technology and driven by a dynamic team, Commercial Bank continues to set the benchmark as a visionary leader in banking, serving millions of Sri Lankans island-wide.
And non-resident citizens like you and me. To enlighten us regarding the foreign exchange regulation of Sri Lanka and its changes, may I introduce our next speaker, Ms. Kalum Amarasinghe, the Head of Foreign Operations and Travels of Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC, Sri Lanka. Again, without me reading her profile, let's take a look at the big screen.
Kalum Amarasinghe is a qualified banker who is presently heading the foreign operations at Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC. Ms. Amarasinghe has served at Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC for over 30 years, out of which 20 years of her experience has been in the field of outflow and inflow foreign exchange transactions and related operations, where she is very conversant with the foreign exchange laws and regulations in Sri Lanka. With her experience and exposure in this important area, she was one of the bankers who was appointed by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka in getting assistance in drafting and amending the latest foreign exchange regulations and directions. She is also a fellow member of the Institute of Bankers of Sri Lanka.
Let's put your hands together to Ms. Kalum Amarasinghe.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before taking you through the new regulations, I would like you to know what it was before 2017, before the relaxation of Exchange Control Act. So in 1948, Sri Lanka got its independence. So as a result, when the British left, Sri Lanka has had enough foreign reserves, and by 1950, we realized that the country will have constraints in converting Sri Lankan rupees into foreign exchange. So as a result, in 1953, the Exchange Control Act was enacted. This Exchange Control Act was a very peculiar law and very restrictive law. It was very powerful, and it said no to most of the foreign exchange regulations, transactions. And by 1960, the country realized that we are heading towards a reserves problem. So gradually, the exchange transactions were tightened, and no person was allowed to have their assets overseas. For an example, if an exporter exports and get their foreign exchange, they were not allowed to have accounts overseas, and then those will have to brought back to Sri Lanka, and so that was that much restrictive. So in 1977, with the change of the government, the open economy policy was implemented, and as a result, in 1990, the Sri Lankan government thought that we should invite the foreign investors to come and invest in Sri Lanka to help our economy. So in 1994, the government of Sri Lanka has signed the Article 8 of IMF articles, where we opened the current account of the country and asking, allowing the entire Sri Lankans to work with the globe to, to carry out the current account transactions. So gradually it has been liberalized, and in 2017, there was a 360 liberalization, and the Exchange Control Act was repealed and new Foreign Exchange Management Act was enacted. So can we go to... In 2016, at the budget, the government of Sri Lanka realized that the exchange control regulations were outdated. So then, as a result, it was announced that a new Foreign Exchange Act has to be implemented, especially to facilitate the foreign investments in Sri Lanka and to promote the investor confidence, having more clarity, transparency, and then again to regularize the outflow and to have proper reserves in the country. Further, it was realized that certain Sri Lankans have their foreign assets overseas which were not declared to the Sri Lankan government, because as I told, in 1962 till 1976, nobody was allowed to have their assets overseas. So now, if they wanted to have, they should have the, at that time, they should have the approval from the Central Bank of Sri Lanka to have their assets overseas. So now they have taken it out and allowed the Sri Lankans to bring that assets to Sri Lanka without any criminality penalties. So with the gradual, they are way forward of foreign exchange management in Sri Lanka. If you take gradual move from controlling regime to the facilitating regime, creating clarity, transparency, convenience, enhancing limits of investment opportunities, taking out criminality for inflow of foreign assets have been taken, and then major foreign fundamental macroeconomic change into the balance of payments as the capital account transactions are further relaxed by way of creating opportunity for foreign investors and local entrepreneurs to invest locally and overseas. And then free transferability among the special foreign currency accounts. So there had been the major changes we see is that that determination of the residential status. When you carry out foreign currency transactions, there are four major fundamentals that we need to focus on. The residential status of a person, whether the person is a resident in Sri Lanka or a non-resident in Sri Lanka, whether the transaction relates to a capital transaction or the current transaction. So residential status, when you determine, in 1972 there was a gazette to determine who the resident and who the non-resident. There we had some ambiguities in ascertaining the residential status of a dual citizen of Sri Lanka. So it was further clarified where they say that in line with the immigration laws, if somebody is living in Sri Lanka for more than 183 days, the person is considered to be a resident in Sri Lanka now. And there is a deeming provision has been taken to consider Sri Lankans working abroad category with employment visa to be Sri Lankan residents only for the opening of personal foreign currency accounts. And then again, there was a change in the mariners who are working in Sri Lankan ships, because it was not clearly clarified in the previous laws. So they have categorized the Sri Lankan mariners who are working in Sri Lankan ships are residents in Sri Lanka. And then export and import of currencies. Earlier, the law was that whoever who brings money into the country, that they have to declare if it is more than 15,000 US dollars. And when they are taking out of Sri Lanka, it was allowed to take only up to 5,000 without the declaration. If they are taking more than that, they have to declare. Now, it is not the case. If somebody wants to bring money, they are allowed to take any amount of money into the country, but it has to be declared to the Sri Lankan customs. And when they are taking out money out of Sri Lanka, if it is up to 10,000, it is not required to be declared, because that limit has been enhanced from $5,000 to $10,000. And if somebody wants to travel from Sri Lanka, and if we'll say if somebody is having more than 10,000 in their hand, even if they had some from previous travels, if they have unutilized foreign exchange, they can take up to 15,000 without the declaration. And then I think for you all, this is more important. Earlier, before the relaxation, out of the personal foreign currency account, it was allowed to withdraw foreign currencies, but it was restricted here under the new laws. It was allowed to take up to 10,000 US dollars for travel purposes only. So there is a change there. And then there had been several kind of accounts, like non-resident foreign currency accounts, resident foreign currency accounts, then resident non-national foreign currency account. Likewise, there are a lot of foreign currency accounts for individuals where they thought that it is an administrative cost to monitor all these things. So as a result, they have categorized 18 accounts into 5 categories. And now you don't have NRSC, RSC, or RNNFC. It is coming under one category, which is called personal foreign currency accounts. So then again, among these accounts, you can do any of your transactions. There are no restrictions for you to, remit money out of Sri Lanka, even for capital investments. And then again, we had foreign currency accounts for business purposes, like foreign exchange earners account. Then there had been accounts for airline and shipping agents. All these accounts are categorized under one category, which is called business foreign currency account. And then again, the most important account was here. Earlier, to invest in Sri Lanka, there had been account called security investment account, and there had been the permission to invest only in shares. Now it has been further relaxed, and foreigners and non-resident Sri Lankans are allowed to invest in more areas like shares, debentures, Sri Lanka development bonds. Even companies can, foreign companies and foreigners can lend to Sri Lankan companies. Then foreigners can invest in properties in Sri Lanka. There are a lot of opportunities in Sri Lanka and in fact, there are opportunities to invest in deposits as well, where if you bring foreign currency, you can convert that into Sri Lankan rupees and invest, and it could be converted even with the interest. So when you see the local market in Sri Lanka, the interest rates are quite attractive when compared to foreign markets. So if you bring your money into the country and convert into Sri Lankan rupees and earn high interest rates, and then you can reconvert and take it back to your country in foreign currency. And then outward investment, this is mainly for Sri Lankan residents. So these accounts are there. So there had been further relaxation to current account transactions. So earlier it was only permitted for merchandise exports, imports, and service payments. It has been further, added in line with the IMF articles, and then payments connected to foreign trade, connected to foreign trade, current business, including services and normal short-term banking and credit facilities. And then again, payment due as interests on loans and net income on other investments, payments of moderate amounts for amortizations of loans for depreciation of direct investments, payments for moderate remittances for family maintenance. That was further added because earlier all those additions were required the central bank approval. And granting, there had been permission granted to the banks to issue corporate credit cards, debit cards. It was not allowed before. And then issue guarantees in respect of current account transactions, allow remittances for payment due on loan agreements, and remove restrictions prevail for entrepot trade. And then visa processing fees for third parties, like if somebody wanted to migrate to another country, so they needed to, pay. They needed to pay their visa fees. It was not allowed, so it is allowed under new laws. And then under the capital transactions, outward investments and migrant allowances, migrant transfer allowances have been enhanced. Earlier, the limit was around for a person to, if I take the outward investment for a Sri Lankan resident to invest overseas, it was the companies which are listed at the Colombo Stock Exchange, they were permitted to invest up to 500,000 per annum in shares and sovereign bonds, and it has been enhanced up to 2 million under the new foreign exchange laws. And then non-listed companies were allowed to invest only up to 100,000. It has been enhanced up to 500,000 US dollars. And partnership registered in Sri Lanka, they were allowed to invest up to $100,000 lifetime, which has been enhanced up to 300,000 US dollars. And then individuals are allowed to were allowed to invest overseas up to 100,000 US dollars. It has been for a lifetime, and it has been enhanced up to 200,000 US dollars lifetime. Then if you take migrant allowances, the migrant transfers, people who are having PR or citizenship in another country, they were allowed to take up to 150,000 US dollars per person up to 2017. That has been enhanced up to 200,000. And then again, annual migration allowance was allowed for them to take after taking their initial migration allowance, which was 20,000 US dollars per annum. It has been enhanced up to 30,000 US dollars. Then the most important area here is capital transactions, investment in Sri Lanka by non-residents. So as I explained, there are a lot of opportunities for Sri Lankans working abroad and the foreigners to come and invest in Sri Lanka by opening an account called inward investment account. If somebody brings money through this account, that is a legitimate way of bringing money into the country. There are no restrictions for the investor to take money back to your country with the surplus through this account. So there are a lot of opportunities like investment in shares in companies, company debentures, and then in debt securities or granting loans to Sri Lankans, and then Sri Lankan companies, and then governments. They can invest in government securities, debentures, unit trusts, and they can open branch offices there, and they can invest in residential properties and any others. If you need to go into any other investment in Sri Lanka, they can seek special permission from the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. And then there are further relaxations on granting loans to Sri Lankans who are working abroad. So they can borrow either in Sri Lankan rupees or in foreign currency, and for any purpose, but to be utilized in Sri Lanka. And then that has to be paid through their personal foreign currency accounts. There might be changes to this because Central Bank is focusing in changing this to facilitate this the Sri Lankans to borrow from Sri Lanka. And then again, earlier it was not permitted the PR holders or the dual citizenship holders to borrow from Sri Lanka. It was relaxed, and they are permitted to borrow only for housing purpose. If they want to borrow from Sri Lanka, they are permitted to borrow for buy residential property or construct or renovate their existing properties. And then borrowing by Sri Lankan students pursuing education overseas, that was not allowed before. And now under the new laws, it is allowed, and then parents can repay those loans. Okay. Thank you very much.
I have seen most of the audience have taken notes down. I think this is one of the interesting topic that delivered by Ms. Kalum Amarasinghe, where all of us are falling into the category of Sri Lankans working in abroad. So of course you will expect some questions from the audience in the panel discussion. With that note, let's start the panel discussion now, the most awaited session of today's program. For that, I would like to invite our chief guest, Mr. Dharma Dheerasinghe, to come to the stage so that we can commence the panel discussion along with Ms. Kalum Amarasinghe. Now, to moderate the panel discussion, I would like to invite one of the most senior member of CA Sri Lanka Kuwait chapter, a former Chief Financial Officer of Bank of Ceylon in Sri Lanka, and former Head of Finance of Qatar National Bank, Kuwait branch. Give a big round of applause to Mr. Ashoka Rupasinghe. Stage is yours, Mr. Ashoka.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ashoka. I think he introduced me. I guess that's enough. Most of the people know me, and I know my audience. The way that this panel discussion is organized is that anyone can raise their hands, and there was a beautiful girl here. Unfortunately, nobody accompanied me to the audience. So they will come to you. Please raise your hands so that this lady will, one of these girls will come to you with the mic, and you can you can ask your questions. If you don't need, no, my powerful voice is enough, so you can stand up and shout from there, we can hear you. If you want to ask a question in Sinhala, you can ask in Sinhala, because both the learned panelists are very good Sinhala speakers as well. So English, speak Tamil also? I don't think so, yeah. I'm sorry for that. So can I start with a small different way of starting, Dharma? Now there is an audience, inspiring and aspiring people, and they are excited about your journey. What do you think that, what can you tell them? Can you tell about yourself and where did you study, what your school is, and then your family, a little bit about?
Thank you, Ashoka. I studied at a central school, and then I must say, the present generation, they go for classes. In my life, I never went for a class or any subject, and I passed all my O-level, A-level, getting the best result in the school, and I went for my undergraduate studies to University of Colombo, and I had some problem because I was underage for admission to the university. However, I was lucky, and I had my undergraduate studies, and I got first class honors in my degree, and then I joined Bank of Ceylon, where you were much later as CFO, and I only had 18 months at Bank of Ceylon, and joined the central bank, where I had served 35 years. I joined the central bank as a management trainee, and then retired as the senior deputy governor, and I had my postgraduate studies while I was in the central bank. And I also had 2.5 years of a stint at the International Monetary Fund in 2007 to 2010 as the alternate executive director for Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, and Sri Lanka. In December 2011, I retired from the central bank, and I stayed at home only 5 days. I had a lot of offers from the private corporates, and I accepted 2 invitations, one from commercial bank, one from another reputed corporate in Sri Lanka, which is Bartley Group of Companies, as chairman. And I continued at commercial bank, joined the commercial bank as deputy chairman, and after 2.5 years, the board elected me as chairman of the board, and I have been there now for 8 years. The regulatory requirement demands that you can serve only 9 years on a board regulated by the central bank. And I am happy to say that I have contributed immensely to the debt market development. I introduced the current primary dealer system, and then some of those debt instruments like the treasury bonds was my brainchild, and Sri Lanka development bonds, which is a government debt instrument issued in dollar terms. And then I'm happy that recently in January issue of LMD Asoka, I've been rated as one of the top 100 business leaders in Sri Lanka, and one of the universities
Deserves applause.
one of the universities in Sri Lanka is recognized me as the most humble economist of the generation. That's the title that they have.
Wow, wonderful. What about the kids? What about the kids and the wife?
Sorry?
What about the kids and the wife?
I have my wife, and whom I met at Central Bank. My wife always complains that I don't speak about her. And thank you, Asoka, for reminding me that I have a wife. And she is very much a wife, a lovely woman, and Callum knows about her. And she was also a professional. Now she's retired as an assistant governor of the central bank. She's very much into voluntary work now, and she was the district governor of the Lions Clubs International in Sri Lanka. And I have two sons who are twins. They're both educated in USA. Back in Sri Lanka, they are well employed. Thank you, Asoka.
What a success story. And let me ask you one question from Madam Kalu, and I will ask it in English. Not that I'm not very good in English. Come on, Annie? Right. දැන් මම කොළඹ යනකොට මට කීයක් ඩොලර් අරන් යන්න පුළුවන්ද?
ඕන තරමක් ගෙනියන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි US dollars 15000ට වැඩි නම් ශ්‍රී ලංකා customs වල ඩික්ලෙයාර් කරන්න ඕනේ.
ඒ කියන්නේ මට 15 මම ෆැමිලි එකත් එක්ක ට්‍රැවල් කරනකොට අපි තුන් දෙනෙක් යනවා නම් ඩොලර් 45000ක් කාටවත් ඔකේ සාක්කුවේ දාගෙන යන්න පුළුවන්. ආයේ එහෙන් එනකොට ගේන්න පුළුවන්ද 15000ක් කියනවා
15000ට ගේනවා නම් ඒක ඩික්ලෙයාර් කරන්න ඕනේ. 10000ක් දක්වා ඩික්ලෙයාර් නොකර ගේන්න පුළුවන්.
ඔව් ඒ වගේ මට කී පාරක් මාසෙකට යන්න පුළුවන්ද?
එහෙම රෙස්ට්‍රික්ෂන් එකක් නැහැ.
ඒක වැදගත්. එහෙම රෙස්ට්‍රික්ෂන් ඒ කියන්නේ වසරකට මාසෙකට මෙච්චරක් ලිමිට් කරලා නැහැ.
එහෙම ලිමිට් කරලා නැහැ.
ඔන්න හොඳ ඔපචුනිටි එකක් ඔඩියන්ස් එකට ඩොලර් 60 ගෙනියන්න ඕන නම් ඩේලි ට්‍රැවල් කරා නම් හරි නේද?
හරිනවා හරි.
ඒව තමයි ඔඩියන්ස් එකට අවශ්‍ය ප්‍රශ්න. ඊළඟට දැන් මේ මිස්ටර් ධර්ම පොඩ්ඩක් කියන්න මේ ඔඩියන්ස් එකේ චූටි ප්‍රශ්න ටිකක් තියෙනවා ඊට පස්සේ අපි උතෙන්ට එමු. මේ දැන් ණයක් ගන්න පුළුවන්ද අපිට?
ණයක් ගන්න පුළුවන්.
කීයක්ද?
ඕනම ප්‍රමාණයක් ගන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි ලංකාවේ යුටිලයිස් කරන්න ඕනේ ඒක. ෆොරින් කරන්සි වලින් හරි ගන්න පුළුවන්, රුපියල් වලින් ගන්නත් පුළුවන්. මේ නැවත ගෙවීම කරන්න ඕනේ ඔයාගේ පර්සනල් ෆොරින් කරන්සි account එක through. ඒක තමයි තියෙන requirement එක. එතකොට
ගෙවල් හදන්න රිපෙයාර් කරන්න විතරයි කියලා ප්‍රසන්ටේෂන් එකේ තිබ්බා. හරිද?
ඒ විල PR හෝල්ඩර්ස්ටයි සිටිසන්ෂිප් හෝල්ඩර්ස්ටයි විතරයි. ඔයගොල්ලෝ ශ්‍රී ලංකන්
මම කවුද?
ඔයාව සලකන්නේ ශ්‍රී ලංකන්ස් employed abroad category එකේ මේ ඔයාට මේ employment visa එකක් තියෙන කෙනෙක් විය යුතුයි. එහෙම එක්කෙනෙක්ට ඕනම අවශ්‍යතාවයක් සඳහා ණය ගන්න පුළුවන්.
ඒ කියන්නේ OD එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන්. මට සේවිංග්ස් account එකක්
OD එකක් ගන්න දීලා නැහැ.
ඇයි OD එකක්?
OD එකක් ගන්න දීලා නැත්තේ මොකද personal foreign currency account එක හරහා තමයි ගෙවන්න ඕනේ. එතකොට OD එකදී ලංකාවෙන් deposit එකක් වැටුනොත් account එකට ඒ OD එක මේ settle වෙනවා.
සේවිංග්ස් account එකක් open කරන්න පුළුවන්?
savings account එකක් අරින්න පුළුවන්. ඒකත් special category එකක් යටතේ. ඒ
රුපියල් account එකක්.
රුපියල් account එකක්. ඒක capital transaction රුපියල් account කියලා ගිණුමක්.
ඔය වචන පාවිච්චි කරන්න එපා. අපි දන්නේ නැහැ එච්චර. capital simple ඔය අපි දන්නේ නැහැ. අපි දන්නේ simple letters capital.
රුපියල් account එකක් අරින්න පුළුවන්.
සාමාන්‍යයෙන් capital කියන්නේ මොනවද?
නෑ capital ඒකනෝ categorize කරලා තියෙන account එක කියන්නේ ශ්‍රී ලංකන්ස් employed abroad category එකටයි dual citizenship and PR holders. ශ්‍රී ලංකන් non residents ලාට.
ඒ කියන්නේ මම.
අනේවාසික ශ්‍රී ලාංකිකයන්ට
ඒ කියන්නේ හුස්ම ටිකක්වත් වතුර ටිකක්වත් බොන්නේ නැති අපි වගේ කට්ටිය ලංකාවේ. අපි ලංකාවට සල්ලි යවන්නේ එහෙම හුස්ම ටිකක්වත්
නෑ. ඒකේ අරින්න බැරි කමක් නැහැ. අරින්න පුළුවන්. ඒකට කැටගරි එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒ කැටගරි එකකට තමයි ඒකට කියන්නේ capital transaction රුපියල් account එක කියලා. CTRA කියලා කියනවා. ඒ ගිණුම අරින්න පුළුවන්. ඒ ගිණුම හරහා ඕනෑම transaction එකක්
සාමාන්‍යයෙන් කස්ටමර් කෙනෙකුට ඕපන් කරන සේවිංග් එකයි මේකේ මොකක්ද වෙනස මොකක්ද?
වෙනස මොකක්ද කියන්නේ මේකේ outed remittances රුපියල් වලින් කරන outed remittances restrict වෙනවා.
ඒ කියන්නේ එළියට යනවා සල්ලි.
එළියට යන එක restrict වෙනවා. ඇතුළට එන එක ඕන තරම් ගන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද personal foreign currency accounts අරින්න permission එක දීලා තියෙනවා. ඒ කැටගරි එකට. ඒකට ඕගොල්ලන්ගේ මේ foreign currency ගෙනාවොත් ඒක ඕනම අවශ්‍යතාවයකට රටින් එළියට ගෙනියන්න දෙනවා.
ඒතකොට අර presentation එකේ I saw that you need to have a minimum security or something. මොන හරි ගියක් හරි මොකක් හරි උගස් තියන්න ඕනද?
You need to have a security. You need to have a security. It's
like Mr. Dharma අපි අපි මිනිසුන්ට
to mitigate the credit risk in the country.
ඒ කියන්නේ නේද අපි පුරවැසියෝ නෙමෙයිද අපි රටේ? අපිට ඇයි මේ පුරවැසියන්ට තියෙන අයිතිය නැත්තේ මේ ඔඩියන්ස් එකට ඉතාම වැදගත් ඒක
මේ එක්ස්චේන්ජ් මම හිතන්නේ මේ සිංහලෙන්ද කියන්න ඕන.
සිංහලෙන් ඉංග්‍රීසියෙන් කමක් නැහැ.
මේ කැලුම් කිව්වා වගේ මේ ඔය මේ අපේ මේ එක්ස්චේන්ජ් මැනේජ්මන්ට් ඇක්ට් එකට අනුව ඒකේ ඩෙෆිනිෂන් එක කියන්නේ රෙසිඩන්ට් ඇන්ඩ් නොන් රෙසිඩන්ට් කියලා. හරිද? දැන් ඉන්ලන්ඩ් රෙවෙනියු ඇක්ට් එකට අනුව යන්නේ citizen and non citizen කියලා. ඒකයි වෙනස.
ඒ කියන්නේ දැන්
අපි කියනවා
නෑ අපිට ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට ලෝන් එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන් සිකියුරිටි එකක් නැතුව ගන්න බෑ.
ලෝන් එකක් කිසිම කෙනෙකුට සිකියුරිටි එකක් ඒ කියන්නේ කොලැටරල් එකක්. නැතුව දෙන්නේ නෑනේ. ඒක රිස්ක් එකක් නේ. ඉතින් ඒක නිසා ඉතින් මෙහෙමයි ඉන්නකො කියන්නේ දැන් මේ ලෝන් එකක් දෙනකොට ඉස්සෙල්ලාම බලන්නේ ඒ රිපේමන්ට් කැපැසිටි එක. කොලැටරල් එක නෙමෙයි. නමුත් රිපේමන්ට් කැපැසිටි එක කොයි වෙලාවෙ නැති වෙනවද කියලා කියන්න බැරි නිසා තමයි කොලැටරල් එකක් ගන්න. එතකොට රිපේ කරන්න බැරි වුණාම කොලැටරල් එකට තමයි අපි අත තියන්නේ. දැන් ඕක මේ දවස්වල ලේසියෙන්ම පැහැදිලි කරලා කියන්න පුළුවන් කාරණයක් තමයි මේ ගාක් අය ගත්ත ලෝන්ස් ගෙවන්න බැරුව දැන් හැම බැංකුවකම NPL ඒ කියන්නේ මේ non performing loan percentage එක වැඩි වෙගෙන යනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ ණය ගත්තා collateral අරගෙනත් ණය ගත්තා ගෙවන්න නැතුව. ඉතින් ඒකයි දැන් අපි collateral වලත් ප්‍රශ්නේ වෙලා තියෙන්නේ ඒකේ තියෙන මාකට් වැලියු එකයි for sale value එකවත් සමහර collateral වල නැහැ. ඒකයි. දැන් මෙහෙම එකක් තියෙනවා. දැන් බැංකුවක බැංකුවක් එක ගනුදෙනු කරලා ස්ටැබ්ලිෂ් වෙච්ච කස්ටමර් කෙනෙකුට නම් අපි මේ non collateralized facilities දෙනවා. ඒකේ ස්ටේජ් එකට යන්න ඕනේ. ඒ මැචුරිටි එකට ගියාන් පස්සේ ඒක ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෑ.
ඕනේ දැන් අපි යෝගි මිනිහුට එන්ට්‍රි එකේම අපිව නවත්තුවාම අපි මැචුර් වෙන්නේ නෑනේ.
ඉතින් කොහොමද අපි විශ්වාස කරන්නේ කොලැටරල් එකක් නැතුව ණයක් දීලා ඒ ණය ගෙවනවද නැද්ද කියන එක. කොලැටරල් එකක් ගත්තාම ණය ගත්ත පුද්ගලයාටත් යම්සි වගකීමක් තියෙනවා මේ ණය ගෙවන්න ඕන. නැත්තම් මගේ කොලැටරල් එක නැති වෙනවා. මං තියපු ගේ හරි ඉඩම හරි මේ ස්ථිර තැන්පත් ගිණුම හරි මොකක් හරි එකක් නැති වෙනවා කියන්නේ. ඒ නිසා ගෙවනවා. ඉතින් ඒක මං හිතන්නේ මේ සිකියුරිටි එකක් හැටියට තමයි ගන්නෙ.
ඔඩියන්ස් එකට
ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවද?
ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවද? අපේ now the child who is our girl. Anybody can you put their hands up if you have a question? එහෙම නැත්නම් මං අහනවා මේ ඔන්ඩියල් කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? ඔන්ඩියල් කියන්නේ මොකක්ද?
උන්ඩියල්.
උන්ඩියල්. මොකක්ද ඒ?
Irregular way of remitting money, inflow and outflow of.
මේගොල්ලෝ දන්නවා ඔය ඔක්කොම කියන්න බෑ. ඒ කියන්නේ ඩික්ලරේෂන් කරන්න නැතුව හොරෙන් අරන් යනවා. දැන් ඒ කියන්නේ අර 15000 කියන්නේ ඔන්ඩියල් එකට සමානද?
නෑ.
15000 ගෙනියන්න පුළුවන්.
15000ට වැඩියෙන් උනත් ලංකාවට ගෙනියන්න පුළුවන්. restrictions නැහැ.
නෑ මං කියන්නේ දැන් අර
15000ට
ඩික්ලරේෂන් නැතුව ගෙනියන්න පුළුවන් කොහොනේ?
ඒකට
ඒකයි ඔන්ඩියල් අතර වෙනසක් තියෙනවද?
නෑ. මොකුත් ඩෙක්ලරේෂන් එකක් නැතුව ගෙනියන්න පුළුවන් 14999ක් දක්වා.
ඩොලර්.
මොකද නීතිය තියෙන්නේ 15000ට වැඩියෙන් ගෙනිච්චොත් තමයි ඩික්ලෙයාර් කරන්න ඕනේ කියලා. ඉතින් ඒ ඔපචුනිටි එක තියෙනවා.
හරි මේ කියපු කාරණේ තවත් පැහැදිලි කරනවා නම් ඒවා මේ බැංකු වලින් හදාගත්ත නීති නෙමෙයි. ඒක රෙගියුලේටර්ස්ලා
මේවා country
දාපු නීති. ඉතින් මේකට එකම හේතුව තමයි මේ money laundering and terrorist financing කියන එක. දැන් ලංකාවෙත් තියෙනවා හැම රටකම තියෙනවා මේ financial intelligence unit කියලා එකක්. ඉතින් මේ ලංකාවේ ඇතුළත වෙන transactions වලත් 1 million rupees වලට වඩා වැඩි transactions හැම එකක්ම central bank එකට report වෙනවා ඒ system එකේම.
Can you say it in English?
එතකොට ඒගොල්ලෝ central bank එකේ FIU එක that is financial intelligence unit එක මේ හැම transaction එකක්ම monitor කරනවා. ඉතින් ඒගොල්ලෝට යම් කිසි වෙලාවක හිතුනොත් යම් කිසි එකක් suspicious transaction එකක් කියලා ඒක ඊළඟට කෙලින්ම ඒ සම්බන්ධ වෙන බැංකුව තමයි ඒකට වග කියන්න ඕන. ඉතින් අන්න ඒකයි මෙතන තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නේ. දැන් අර කිව්වාගේ ඩොලර් ගෙනියන සීමාව දාලා තියෙන්නේ මේ සීමාවක් නැතුව මේ ගනුදෙනු කරන්න ඉඩ දුන්නොත් ඒක රටක ආරක්ෂාවට තර්ජනයක් වෙන්න පුළුවන් නිසා.
Okay, now let me ask the audience if you have any questions, please.
මේ සිංහලෙන් කතා කරන්නේ ඉංග්‍රීසියෙන් කියන්නද?
I think English is better.
English, yeah. Okay. I want to know, like you mentioned, you can take up to $15,000 to Sri Lanka, and when you are coming back, does it have to be in dollars or it can be any other currency?
Even in any other currency, but it has to be less than 10,000 if you want to bring it back without declaration.
Okay, that means in any other currency, even in Sri Lankan rupees, up to 14,000 US dollars.
In Sri Lankan rupees, you are permitted to take only up to $5,000, 5,000 rupees if I am not wrong there, but not in Sri Lankan rupees, but in any other foreign currency.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. I am a loyal customer of commercial bank for the last 25 years. This is relevant to all the professionals and others who are serving in the Middle East. Now, with regard to the foreign currency FDs, which is marketed by, and by the way, I am a friend of Nandika Buddhipala, we are batchmates. I want to know why there's a big parity in the rate of return of foreign currency FDs, which is given in your conventional banking, and your Islamic banking, which I had to, because of the big parity, I had to withdraw certain FDs. Because in the Islamic banking, it gave a return of 1.9%, whereas the conventional FD in US dollars is giving 4.5. Is it because of the investment mismatch or any other reason? The big parity in the rate of returns?
There is no disparity. I think that's the wrong terminology. There is a distinction between regular banking and Islamic banking.
Yeah.
In Islamic banking, we don't use a rate of interest.
Agreed. Yes.
Right now,
yes.
you said that in Islamic banking, the rate of interest you get is lower.
Not the rate, the profit rate declared is 1.9%.
That is profit rate, no, not
Yes.
interest rate.
Yes.
So those are two things, profit
So
rate
that's why
and
is
interest
it
rate
due
are
to the investment?
not compatible.
Yes.
If I may say, it's apple and oranges, right? So if you want to be in Islamic banking, that is profit sharing, right? That is the risk that the bank is taking with the investor, right? So you have to settle with that. And it is not only commercial bank, it's the same standard practice in any other bank. I mean, the same thing that you are talking about a depositor, you being a depositor of foreign currency with commercial bank, or any other bank for that matter. And the other side of the equation is that there are borrowers, people who borrow. So we lend to, we have a Islamic banking division, and we lend to customers based on Islamic banking, on profit sharing basis.
No, yeah, there's a competitor of yours, which I don't want to mention the name, which is also Sri Lankan local bank, which is giving
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, it's giving a very high return, which is about 3.75 to 4%. So I want to know, for me, if I were to continue with commercial bank, what will make me to still stay with commercial bank?
You see, I think I have to put some secret out here. Why our deposit rate is lower? Because we have enough liquidity. We are the most liquid bank, both in foreign currency and Sri Lanka rupees in Sri Lanka. We lend to foreign banks also in dollars. We lend to other banks in rupees. I don't want to say the figures. And if I may say, to explain what I am saying, we have at the moment 110 billion rupees of excess liquidity. So we are adding more to excess liquidity, means we are taking a bigger hit. So we want to contain the loss we take. It's a matter of opportunity cost.
I hope you are okay with that answer. But let me take you to a different this thing. You mentioned in a new horizons of Sri Lanka, new opportunities coming. This audience, what do you think the opportunities that come up for people like us in this audience, and what kind of a role that this audience can play in achieving, and what kind of help you need from this audience to the government, and what are the opportunities for us to join in this process?
I think I must say that the Sri Lankans working overseas in many part of the world, they were very keen to go and get involved in the last presidential election. There's that much of interest. I think you must be knowing, some of your colleagues here would have gone. I have met several people who have come from various parts of the world, and they actively participated in campaigning for Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa. And there's a role, I'm sure, that the Sri Lankans working abroad, and that's their commitment and obligation, to work for. I mean, the whole purpose of our coming here also to convey that message. And why, Asoka, you just mentioned something called the brain drain. Brain drain is because, the people who benefit from free education in Sri Lanka, when they become professionals like the doctors and accountants, they look for opportunities at home, and when they find the better opportunities overseas, in the sense that you get paid much lower in Sri Lanka than your opportunities. It's a matter of opportunity cost. I mean, any rational individual will think, why should I, settle for a lower salary when I have opportunities overseas to earn more, right? And that is good. I mean, in a sense, in strict economic terms, labor market mobility is a good thing, not a bad thing. Right?
Sir, but there are conflicting messages coming from the government. Now, the one side of the government, sometimes the government says, yeah, we need to promote professionals going out of this country, and instead of the low level, the employees, but make high value professionals and send them abroad. And at the same time, no, we need professionals back in our country. We cannot afford to have brain drains. Which story is right?
Also, it's a chicken and egg story. Because of the brain drain, we lost the much valued human resource in the country. And as a result, country has suffered. And our country has not grown. And therefore, those people find that back in Sri Lanka, their opportunity is less. Right? And they, as rational individuals who behave rationally, think that it's better for them to be employed somewhere overseas rather than going back to Sri Lanka.
Yeah, do you prefer professionals going out of the country or professionals outside the country coming back to country? Which one is better?
Right. Professionals going out of the country, I must say. Now, we were talking about remittances. Our ambassador also mentioned that remittances form a good part of foreign currency income in our balance of payment, which is at the moment over $7 billion. Foreign remittances we get in Sri Lanka. So if you look at the composition and who will send money back to Sri Lanka, I'm sure these professionals who are employed in the Middle East, they send part of their income back to Sri Lanka. But other people who have migrated to other countries, other developed and advanced countries, who are also professionals like engineers, doctors and accountants, they go and settle down in those countries, and they come back to Sri Lanka, and they want to sell whatever they have back in Sri Lanka and take that money also. I think Callum also mentioned how much money. So it is not only a brain drain, it's a money drain. Resource drain as well, right? They take all their money, and they sometimes come and accuse. I had a big problem while I was in Washington. There's a lot of Sri Lankans, whom I met. They used to sometimes, use abusive language on me, saying that that Sri Lankan government is, keeping their money back in Sri Lanka. This is our money. We want to take our money to where we live, and we have to look after our children. So most of these people, I'm not ashamed to say this, those guys who go and settle down in those countries like Australia, Canada, US, and some country in Europe, they want to help their children, and those children also demand the parents, look, you have a house in Sri Lanka, you have some other property, sell that and bring that money and give us that money. I want to buy a house, I want to buy a vehicle. That's a demand. Most of the parents, it has become a social issue as well.
Okay, in the interest of time, we can take maybe maximum 2 more questions from the audience, please.
Yeah, I also have been a loyal customer of commercial bank for a long time.
Can we ask a common question, please?
Yeah. Why does the commercial bank doesn't have any rewards programs like other banks?
We do have our credit cards. We do have.
No, I want to know what kind of reward program you're talking about.
HNB Pathum Vimana.
It is no
HNB
more.
Pathum Vimana is a tiger by the tail. You can quote me, right? And
Such a chapter will not be responsible for this
right?
comment.
Right? Because I speak from my authority at the central bank,
Deputy Governor.
Yes, right? And also the central bank banned those schemes, you know, like lottery draws and things like that. And those things are banned. Unethical and illegal practices.
One more question, please. Yes, one gentleman over there.
Yeah, I like to ask Mr. Deherasinghe that now when you take a loan or something, you look into collaterals and some security, like mainly land, property, and I think gold also. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and why don't, like a suggestion, I think the gem industry is also very big and it is very silently, there's a lot of money involved in that. Why don't you all consider taking these as collaterals and helping booming the industry and all?
Interesting question, right? And any bank or any lending institution.
And I'm just sorry to disturb you, and I know there are some people who are already doing this, like they are taking the gems and they are giving them money and keeping it as a security. It is already happening.
And also at the same time, those people who give gems and borrow, both sides there are complaints as well. And some people come and complain, I lost my gems and somebody had played out and somebody ran away with my money or gems. There is a much bigger risk that is associated with gems being taken as collateral. There is no proper pricing, right? There is no proper valuation, not like gold. Gold is a commodity which is marketed anywhere in the world which has a stable price. Now, looking at a gem, you don't know what price you can quote for the gem. There is no valuation, right? Even the Gems and Jewellery Authority does not have a scheme to value the gems. So there is a risk. Any lending institution will first look at the risk.
Can I close this session now? Audience, okay? Okay, before we close this session, I need to just make a small comment about Mr. Dharmadhirasinghe. Dharmadhirasinghe, actually, sir, we respect you so much from this audience. The Sri Lankan audience, this maybe, I don't know, I'm here for last almost more than 5.5 years. So many people come from Colombo and make speeches, but they're all mostly political speeches or musical shows. But there were no professionals willing to come to Kuwait and address an audience like this. But you humbly actually accepted our invitation. And not only he accepted, actually you are paying the bills for this night's dinner. We must actually, as the audience, we must thank him and we must appreciate him and give him a round of applause. And to make this event successful, there is always a navigator, and that's this person, Pradeep. Pradeep is not a friend of mine, sir. But everyone thinks Pradeep is a personal friend of mine. He became a friend of mine by his sheer conduct of his business. He became a business friend with me as a customer and the banker relationship, and it went long way. So when I actually asked for money to sponsor this event, it was very difficult to get a little thing from him, right? But eventually we won. But I must tell this audience, we need such bank officers. Though it was very difficult for me to negotiate, I told him, I salute you as a bank officer, Pradeep, because I am happy that my money is safe with officers like you. Thank you, Pradeep. Your money is not a waste. These people got a lot of things. And Mr. Dharma Dheerasinghe I must also say something about him personally. And the governorship is I don't know, God gifted to his family, yeah? He is the governor of Central Bank, senior governor of Central Bank, the wife, the assistant governor of Central Bank. He became the governor of the Lions Club, the people of Powerful Voices, and the wife became the governor of the Lions Club. Your family is a governor's family. Yeah, and with all that, it's very difficult to get 5 minutes for me to have a meeting with him. I had to wait outside his office, and every time I saw him coming, but Asoka, wait, I'll come, and quickly I'll come back. So it was very difficult. But with that, you spent 3 days for this audience, sir. Yesterday and today and tomorrow, right? And from Kuwait, we respect you so much for this event, and that carries a long way. Now, my final request, if you believe that Kuwait has an audience like this, and there are Sri Lankan capable of conducting an event to promote Sri Lanka, you are a powerful voice, sir, right? You associate all the political leaders, yeah, government and opposition, everyone equally, I know you. And you associate all the powerful voices. You are an opinion leader among many of them. Can you carry a message across to this audience and say, these people in Kuwait, professionals, executives working in, they are loving this country, and they don't even take a drop of water from Sri Lanka. They don't even take a little bit of oxygen. We don't smoke. So we can do much more. Can you carry a message saying to your policymakers, can we do a bigger program like that? Can we do a bigger program than this? Yes, Sri Lankans here in Kuwait, I'm asking. Yes, we can do a good program for Sri Lanka, to promote Sri Lanka. Can the policymakers help us do this exercise? And that's the way I thought we can join the government mandate. Is it possible for you to have, I think, just a little word across your mouth? It can take a long way. Yeah? And we are ready. We are ready. That's my humble request to this powerful voice. I hope my audience will agree with me. Is that okay? Yeah. We can lead, sir. With that, I will hand over to Mangala.
It was a unique panel discussion, isn't it? And a lot of question posed, and then thank you very much for the two panelists to tolerate all the questions and given very brief and detailed answers. And I would like to now start the token of appreciation. For that, I would like to invite His Excellency, the Ambassador Sri Lanka in Kuwait, Mr. Mohammed Jaufar, to come to the stage, accompanied by President of CS Sri Lanka Kuwait Chapter, Sanjeeva Senaratne, to give away the token of appreciation to the panelists. May I also call upon Mr. Pradeep Bandhuwansa also to come to the stage. We will start with our token of appreciation. Goes to Mr. Dharma Dheerasinghe, the Chairman of Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC, and our chief guest today, and delivering a wonderful presentation of New Horizon. Give a big round of applause, everyone. Yes, you can continue to applause. The next token of appreciation goes to Ms. Kalu Amarasinghe, who also have delivered a detailed presentation and a lot of enlightenment of foreign exchange. Let's put your hands together. Last but not least, the appreciation of the dedication to our program goes to Mr. Pradeep Bandhuvanshal. Thank you for all the support rendered. Let's keep applause. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Please be seated. We can continue with the rest of the program. We have come almost to the end of today's program, New Horizon, and I must thank every one of you being a great audience today and really enjoyed together the time that we spent more than, it's nearly 3 hours time. And as a master of ceremony, I would like to apologize if anyone got hurt by any word unintentionally. With that, I invite Mr. Sajid Sankalpa, who is the executive member of CA Sri Lanka Kuwait chapter, for the vote of thanks of today's program. Good luck and triple gem best to all of you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Our chief guest, keynote speaker, Mr. Dharma Dheerasinghe, Chairman of Commercial Bank of Ceylon. Our guest of honor today, His Excellency, the Ambassador of Sri Lanka in Kuwait, Mr. Mohammad Jawhar, and all our distinguished invitees. It's an honor to propose a vote of thanks today in this event. A big thank shall goes to Mr. Dharma Dheerasinghe, Chairman of Commercial Bank of Ceylon, accepting our event, accepting our invitation, and coming here to Kuwait. Thank you very much, sir. It was a very wonderful presentation. And I would like to thank His Excellency and Ambassador of Sri Lanka in Kuwait, Mr. Mohammad Jawhar, and his staff for gracing this event, today's event. Special thanks shall goes to Mr. Pradeep Bandhuvanshal, Head of Remittance and Digital Banking at Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC, for coordinating this event. Thank you very much, Mr. Pradeep. And also, I would like to thank Ms. Kalum Amarasinghe, Head of Foreign Operations and Travel at Commercial Bank of Ceylon, for your insightful updates on the foreign exchange laws. Thank you, ma'am. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Commercial Bank of Ceylon for sponsoring today's event, and also all the board of directors, including Mr. Ranganathan, CEO of the Commercial Bank of Ceylon, and all the Kuwait-based staff of the bank. Thank you very much, all of you. I would like to thank all our distinguished invitees for coming here and being with us despite having your busy schedules. Thank you very much, all of you. And I also would like to thank our Meter girls for helping welcoming our guests and all their supports. Thank you very much, girls. And special thanks shall goes to Mr. Leo Pereira, Assistant Director of Conventional Sales at Count Plaza Hotel, and Ms. Rohini, for Operation Manager, and all the support staff of the hotel. Thank you very much for your support. An event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheel started long back. I should give a special thanks to our Executive Committee of Sri Lanka Kuwait chapter. Thank you very much for your hard work. Once again, I would like to thank all of you for participating here for this event. Thank you very much. But last, not least, I would like to invite all of you for the dinner, and you may enjoy. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.